1. Scene. The weight of years. Deepened. The sun, a heavy, bruised coin, climbed slowly over the valley, its light struggling to penetrate the morning mist. For Elias, the light was a daily reminder of a promise broken and a life lost. He was a man carved from the same hard granite as the hills he farmed. He mounted his old tractor, the metal seat chilling his work-worn hands. The damp, earthy scent of the soil, rich with night rain, filled his lungs. It was the scent of his calling, and the perpetual faint ghost of his wife, Anya, whose hair always smelled faintly of wild lavender when she returned from the creek. Today, the earth was not just ready for seed. It was ready to surrender its secrets. Elias told himself what he always did. It was a day to turn the soil and look forward. But nothing about this day would obey his quiet certainty. The tractor's engine groaned, a familiar sound of old machinery meeting older earth. The plow bit deep, and then came the sound that ruptured 30 years of silence. A high-pitched, solid metallic screech. Elias cut the engine instantly. Silence rushed back in, now heavy with tension. He knelt, his eyes scanning the freshly turned furrow. There it was, a small dark object. As he scraped away the wet clay, he recognized it. An old tin tobacco box, rusted but sealed, and scratched into the metal, not professionally, but with a deliberate, familiar hand, was a single name. Anya. His knees sank into the mud. The small box held the physical weight of nothing, but the gravitational pull of 3 lost decades. He felt dizzy. He hadn't searched for her body, only for a reason, and now the earth had given him a sign. He prized the lid open. Inside, a single folded letter. The paper was fragile, like dried autumn leaves, but the ink of the first sentence was starkly clear. Don't look for me. Elias, I've already found you. It was her handwriting, elegant, decisive, challenging. A cold dread mixed with a furious hope. Anya's voice, which he had tried for 27 years to forget so he could breathe, now spoke from the paper. And Elias, the strong man who had accepted grief as his silent partner, collapsed onto the fertile ground, his tears finally breaking the drought of his soul. 2. Scene. A letter that breathes, deepened, the oil lamp cast dancing. Amber shadows across the small stone farmhouse kitchen. The air was thick with the scent of burning wood and the old, damp paper drying on the hearth. Elias held the letter until the ink felt like a part of his skin. He unfolded the second page. His thumb brushed over the words that changed everything. Elias, my love, I don't know if this letter will ever surface. Perhaps the plow will find it 100 years from now. But you must know the truth. I did not run away, nor did I perish by the river. I was taken, but not by force. The clarification was a new kind of blow. Taken, but not by force. His mind reeled back to the morning she vanished. Anya had told him she was taking the week's milk to Gideon, their reclusive neighbor who lived on the far side of the fields, near the boundary forest. Elias had been busy repairing the stone wall. By midday, she hadn't returned. By dusk, the silence was suffocating. By the next morning, Gideon's shack was empty, his old cart gone. The villagers had simply merged the 2 disappearances into one grim tale of an elopement or a double tragedy. Anya's letter turned suspicion into certainty. Gideon was involved, and the village, Elias realized, had been willing to let the silence hold the lie. The following morning, Elias walked into the village cafe, a place that thrived on gossip, but where he had been only a spectral presence for decades. The clatter of coffee cups ceased immediately. He didn't sit at his usual corner. He stood in the center, his gaze sweeping over the faces that had witnessed his slow decline. Anya did not run. His voice was low, resonating with the earth's own rumble. She did not die. Gideon took her. A sharp intake of collective breath was the only reply. They were listening, and that, Elias knew, was the only permission he needed to exhume the truth. 3. Scene. The house that stood empty. Deepened. Gideon's house was an architectural corpse, its roof sagging like a weary shoulder, its unhinged door moaning softly in the breeze. The air inside was cold, tasting of rot and settled dust. Elias was searching for her presence, not Gideon's. He found the old wooden trunk beneath a cracked windowpane. It was not locked, suggesting Gideon left in haste or with arrogance. Inside, Elias's fingers brushed against soft, faded fabric, a few of Anya's dresses, the ones with the tiny embroidered flowers, and a small silver hair clip she wore every Sunday. The sight of these intimate objects unclaimed, preserved, almost broke him again. Beneath the clothes, wrapped in a linen cloth, was a thin leather-bound notebook. Anya's small, neat handwriting covered the pages, a conversation she'd been having with herself. Gideon promises safe passage. He says he understands that I cannot tell Elias the truth, not while the village customs are so rigid. The land is Elias's whole world. The truth would poison it for him. I must choose between my husband's sanity and our child's future. Gideon is waiting. He is strange, but he is helping me protect my life's most beautiful secret. I must leave the proofs. If anyone finds this, go there. Following the text was a post office box number in the city. Elias sat on the dusty floor, the sheer weight of her sacrifice pressing down. She had left him so he could keep the farm, his identity, his life tethered to the soil. She had endured the label of the wife who abandoned him to protect him from the shame of a secret son. He didn't tear the number out. Instead, using Gideon's dried inkwell, he carefully transcribed the number onto a piece of his own worn ledger paper, then sealed the notebook back into the trunk. He left Gideon's house as quietly as he had entered, carrying the small paper like a burning coal. 4. Scene. The city of lost sounds. Deepened. The city was a riot of gray and chrome, a dizzying maze compared to the clean lines of Elias's fields. The noise was constant, a cacophony of engines and distant voices that felt meaningless dot at the main post office. The air was stale and bureaucratic. Elias, smelling faintly of soil and kerosene, felt utterly exposed. The young clerk took the number, his face a mask of weary indifference. He typed, frowned, and looked back at Elias. "Sir, the record shows an unclaimed envelope for this code, dated 27 years ago. It was designated for permanent archiving 2 decades past." Elias had to grip the counter to steady himself. "Is it still retrievable?" The clerk shrugged, intrigued by the farmer's intensity, and led him into the labyrinthine archive room. It was a cathedral of forgotten things, stacked high with dusty shelves. Finally, a small brown envelope, brittle with age, marked simply E.Y. on the back, written in faint, almost erased pencil. "If Elias finds this, I'm still breathing somewhere. And I forgive you for searching." Elias took the envelope outside into the soft city rain. He stood for a long time beneath a leaking awning. He had the power to break the seal, to end the suspense. But if he opened it, if the contents confirmed she was alive, the truth would demand action, a new life, a new search, a new world. What then? He couldn't risk shattering the protective shell of silence he had built around himself. He put the envelope in his inner pocket, its edges sharp against his heart. 5. Scene. The lake that whispers. Deepened. Elias drove home without pause. When he reached the wooden bridge, the place where Anya was last seen walking towards Gideon's farm, he felt compelled to stop. The creek bed below was merely baked clay and bleached stones now. He stepped onto the dry creek floor. The wind picked up, swirling the dust, and for a terrifying second, he heard it again, clear and chilling. Anya's voice. "Don't look for me, Elias. I've already found you. It was not a memory. It felt like a current message, an unseen hand guiding him. At night, the lack of sleep was a physical pain. He knew he had delayed the inevitable. He lit the lamp, pulled out the envelope, and with a trembling hand tore the fragile paper edge. Inside, a single piece of heavy vellum. Only one line written in the center. The lake beneath the village is waiting for you. Dive into the past. 6. Scene. The secret below. Deepened. The village lake, long since corrupted into a shallow, mosquito-ridden swamp, was a place of local superstition. No one ventured near its murky waters. Elias wore his heavy working boots, wading through the viscous mud, flashlight beam cutting through the dense reeds. The smell was cloying. Sulfurous. The beam hit something a length of heavy, rust-colored chain. It was tethered to the land and disappeared into the mud just below the waterline. He pulled, and with a sucking sound, a weathered wooden hatch, reinforced with iron bands, broke the surface. He leveraged it open. A burst of ice-cold, cellar-like air rushed out. Inside the opening, tucked beneath the frame, was a small, perfectly preserved wooden chest. On the lid, a final, small note, weighted by a smooth river stone. Anya, why? He lifted the lid slowly. Inside, laid out as if for a burial, were her most personal tokens, the deep purple shawl she wore when they were courting, a pair of simple silver hoop earrings, and beneath them, the final letter. Elias, if you are reading this, your heart is finally open to the cost of love. Gideon did not take me by force, and he did not imprison me here. He was my confidant. I left, I had to. I was hiding a truth that would have shamed you in the eyes of the village, that would have shattered your bond with the land you cherish. Our son was born in secret, in the harsh winter following our wedding. I hid him, but I could not hide the truth forever, and I couldn't risk the village demanding he be removed. Our son is alive. I chose his life over our home. I knew you would wait here, tethered to the soil. I had to tether myself to his future. Elias's breath stalled. A son. His grief was instantly replaced by a wave of protective, fierce paternity he had never known. He turned the page. A small black and white photograph slipped out. A young woman who was unmistakably Anya, standing beside a serious-faced boy of about 10. Both beside a worn town sign, colon Stoneha, aim.7. Scene. The town named Stonehaven. Deepened. The next morning, Elias looked older, yet entirely new. He kept his silence, but it was now a silence of purpose, not sorrow. He drove past the familiar fields, turning his back on his village for the first time in 30 years. Stonehaven was a sturdy, self-contained town, built on solid rock. A contrast to the valley's yielding soil. At the only tea shop. A warm, bustling place. A framed photograph dominated a shelf above the counter. A young man, strong and serious, gripping a shovel at a groundbreaking ceremony. The caption read, Aaron Anya's son, the future of Stonehaven farming. Est. 1995. Elias staggered back, knocking a chair slightly. The face was his own, stripped of worry, decades younger. The eyes Anya's sharp, intelligent gaze stared back at him. Is he still here? Elias asked the proprietor, his voice cracking. Aaron? Oh, yes, the man smiled. The best young farmer in the district. He's out on his fields. Never leaves. He inherited his land from his mother. Elias walked to the edge of the town, his feet crunching on gravel. The sun was setting, painting the sky in deep violets and oranges. There, on a vast, well-worked stretch of land, a powerful, quiet young man was steering a tractor. He looked up as Elias approached. Their eyes locked across the boundary of the field. Elias stopped at the edge of the turned earth. He didn't rush. He simply held out his hand, palm up, revealing the soil dust embedded in his lifeline. "The earth is good?" "Son," he said, the words simple and true. The young man stopped the tractor. And slowly, his own hand reached out, crossing the invisible boundary between their lives. "Yes," Aaron replied, his voice a deep, resonant echo of Elias's own. Tears tracked paths down his dust-smeared cheeks. He didn't need to say father. The silence, finally, said it all. 8. Scene. The earth remembers. Deepened in the months that followed. The valley witnessed a resurrection. Elias was no longer silent Elias. The villagers watched with quiet respect as the old farmer drove his pickup to Stonehaven twice a week, bringing seeds and knowledge from the old valley. Eventually, Aaron moved his primary residence to the valley farm. He brought modern tools, but he learned the ancient rhythm of his father's land. They worked side by side. One, Elias, still plowing the past, integrating the pain and the decades of wading into the soil. The other, Aaron, planting the future, a future built on truth and forgiveness. One spring afternoon, as they stopped to share water, Elias looked across the newly seeded field. "Your mother," he whispered to Aaron. "She chose the hardest path to save us both." Aaron nodded. "She told me when I was old enough. She said the valley soil was your soul, and she couldn't break it." Elias smiled, a genuine wrinkle-deep smile. He knelt and scooped a handful of rich earth. "The earth forgets nothing, my son," he murmured, the wind carrying his voice. "But it forgives everything, and it gives back what was lost." At the corner of the field, where the boundaries of their two farms met, Elias buried a new tin box. Inside was a letter, not to Anya, but to the land itself, a promise and a final confession of peace. He included Anya's silver hair clip as a token. "Don't look for me. I've already found you, and I'm finally home."